Welcome to the show. I'm Doug Johnson, and this is The Business of Life. During each show, we meet with one of our local personalities who really has some success strategies to share with us. Today's guest is an old Twinsburger. Not old in age, but he's been around Twinsburg for a long time. His name is Bill Delgado, and many of you know him as an educator. He's an entrepreneur and a leader. So Bill has many words of wisdom for us today. We'll get started. Bill, thanks so much for being here today.
Doug, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Well, you're welcome. And we go way back. I'm
Yes, we
so
do.
excited that you decided to join us today.
Well, thank you.
So you have always been a doer, Bill. You were an educator. At the same time, you started a little printing business. In fact, 30 years ago, almost 30 years ago, you printed my first business
Yes.
cards.
Yeah.
So we go back quite a while.
You survived that too.
And survived that, exactly. And we always wondered how you were able to do this juggling act of teaching and entrepreneurship and so on and so forth. So we've always kind of admired you for that.
That's very kind. Thank you.
So Bill, for our audience, give us a little bit of your background. What's your backstory?
Well, growing up in Reminderville,
Okay.
back in the day, as they say, it was a great place to grow up, and we had pretty much command of the neighborhood, all the kids, and in a very tight-knit community. So we were raised with a lot of love there. And my father being fire chief in Reminderville for 28 years, we were very community-oriented at that time, and we just basically took that message out into what we were doing, Aurora High School, and a lot of my formative years were spent at Jog Lake Park as an employee, a ride operator. It was very, very fond memories of that period of time where Cookie and I met. And so we're Jog Lake Park daters and sweethearts at that point. She was the hat check girl or hat store girl, and I was the roller coaster operator. So we moved on from there and raised four amazing women, four beautiful daughters, and they brought great men into their lives. So we're blessed now with our children being around in the area. One at Twinsburg High School teaching. Two, surprisingly enough, are interior design and working with Flight Options, which is a private jet company, and our youngest is aquatics coordinator for the Red Cross. So they're all successful women, and we're blessed with 9 grandchildren now. So
holy criminy, Bill!
And my advice is, if you don't have any, go rent some, because they're just awesome. They're fun, and we have a great time. We have a large crew when we get together. And it's fun. So from there, I managed to stay employed as a teacher for 38 years, all 1-year contracts. So that was interesting.
Must have been doing something right all the time.
Well, I like to say I've been fooling them for a long time, but they're on to me. So it was time to look for something else to do, and in facing the economics of retirement, basically was given advice by the retirement people. Well, you can keep teaching, but we're changing the formula method. So we found an optimum time to make that transition, and then have moved on to another project that's near and dear to my heart, and we'll see if we can bring it to fruition. So we're working on working pretty hard on trying to establish a winery right now. So.
Right.
So it's been fun. It's been a great journey, and amazing people that are willing to share both education and information and philosophy along the way. So we've been blessed in so many ways.
Well, and I can tell when you start speaking about that project, your whole face just lights up.
Yeah, it's the first thing where I've ever worked at that I could actually consume my mistakes. So.
I love that philosophy.
It's a good one, yes.
Jeez. So tell us a little bit about your teaching career, because I know that there were kids who, when you say, oh, Mr. Delgado, oh, I had Mr. Delgado, he was such a great teacher. So what did you teach, and why did you want to get into teaching in the first place? Why was it important for you to impart knowledge to the kids, to students?
Well, one of the things I feel very strongly is that we have, and I would tell my students this, that we have teachers everywhere. Teachers aren't just in the classroom. If we're willing to listen and pay attention and watch, there are teachers everywhere. So it became a pretty easy, I think, transition from that idea. Once I was given the opportunity, it was a serendipitous opportunity at the time, but I basically took what I was doing in the print and graphics industry, and at the time I was actually looking to get into another career, but I was told by someone in the schools, have you ever thought about teaching? And when I was done laughing, I started thinking about it on a more realistic basis, and thought, well, you know what, I'll give it a try, and let me give it a couple of years and see how it works, and you know, I can always find something else to do, go back into the print industry. And what I found is that the technology and the career end of education was a perfect fit for me. I was able to basically use print and graphics and the training that's associated with that as a way of kind of imparting maybe a little bit more in relationship to attitude and philosophy with the students. I was a product of vocational education my senior year, and I just think it's a tremendous educational opportunity for students if it's available. Never regretted not only taking the classes that I took in my senior year of high school, but we've seen lives change at Cuyahoga Valley Career Center, where I ended up, and also at Warrensville High School, where I spent 19 years, giving students that type of education that allows them to find their talents and find their skills. It's been tremendously rewarding from that standpoint.
So how would you do that? How would you help them find their skills or their passion?
Well, sometimes it was a mystery. It would be hard to figure out exactly. But I think probably the biggest thing is being in career and technical education. You're allowed to shape or scope projects, information, staying within the guidelines and the standards necessary for certification, but you're still possibly more freedom for an instructor to shape those kinds of projects that are critical to the industry and providing eventual employment and further education, but at the same time tapping into those talents that a student, or that skill set that a student already possesses. And it's not that you're creating a skill set, you're just taking what's in the rough and maybe helping that student polish it more. And that's rewarding when you see that happen for a student, whether it's for me printing a t-shirt or designing a business card, or watching a student finally understand how a printing press runs and making it sing, so to speak. It's very rewarding from that standpoint, because you know the light bulb is on. And so that's a mutual kind of a relationship that I think is critically important in the education process.
Okay.
And difficult to do in normal academic environments because of the huge demand for grades and testing and the number of students that teachers have to respond to, both from a individual standpoint as well as a collective standpoint with their classes. It's a challenge. It's a challenge. I was very lucky to be in career and technical education, I believe, from that standpoint.
So how many students would you guess that you helped shape?
Well, I don't know, and it's really would be hard to say. It's kind of like a police officer, where how many people do you have you really had an impact on? It's hard to tell sometimes. What you might have prevented happening, or who you've helped that you wouldn't have realized. But just in terms of the number of students I stay in contact with over the years, and some who've come back and been advisory people for me over the years, and then eventually have become friends. It's I'd say we have a good relationship with a number of former students, and it's always a pleasure to catch up to them and dip into their lives and see where they've ended up. So, and some are now business owners, so that's a good feeling as well. So,
well, excuse me, that's really kind of a neat feeling.
yeah.
And it says a lot about you that the students are willing to come back and to keep in touch, and so many of them doing that.
Yeah, well, they also developed a sense of wanting to give back, so there's a real community there in the career and technical ed field, and not just for my program, but I've seen that relationship with my colleagues, whether it is auto mechanics, auto body, or heating and air. There's that bond that I think forms, and I think as instructors in that field of education, we're very lucky because we're able to share not only the technology, but also some of the ins and outs of the business life as well. And that has a lot to do with attitude development and really celebrating work, if you will. So.
And that is so needed in today's world.
I think so. Yeah, I think so.
It really is. Bill, you've used the term a couple times, community. Talk with us, if you will, about community. What does it mean to you, and why is it so important?
Oh, starting from, let's go macro and work in. Ohio's becoming a very good place to live and raise a family. When you think about, on a macro sense, all the everything challenging weather-wise. We have our challenges, obviously, but it looks better and better as we look at what's going on with storms and earthquakes and things of that nature, and the community. I think there's more of an acceptance now or possibly a return to local source, local development, local interest, and a natural entrepreneurial feeling that's starting to be generated more and more, which is a sense of community. But as far as Northeastern Ohio, living here all my life and raising a family here, community associated with everything from T-ball to places of worship to parks and rec, that so much goes into shaping who our kids become. And for our family and for our children, it's been huge in their development, and continues to be huge for them as they develop their own children. It's an integral part of their DNA, who they become. So it's part of who we are, and having a sense of community, I think, is really important. It helps people be able to tap into their roots and where they can venture out from there. There was a saying at my daughter's college, which was Muskingum, and a saying was from John Glenn, that from here you can go anywhere, and they adopted that, and I had that poster on my wall when I was teaching, because I felt the same way about the classroom and the same way about the community. From our communities in Northeastern Ohio, we can literally go anywhere and venture anywhere. So
nice. Talking about community, Bill, I know we've mentioned this in passing, but Mary and I used to watch you rollerblading
yes,
all the time. And speaking about community, you would have a whole community of people behind you. And we used to call you the Pied Piper of Twinsburg.
Jeez.
Here comes Bill on his rollerblades, followed by 5 or 8 or 10
you're-
other people.
Yeah.
So talk about that. Why rollerblading first off, and then why were all these people in your rollerblading community?
Oh my goodness, I don't know. Well, rollerblading was obviously a challenge. It was hot back in the day, if you will, and it was a great exercise, great form of exercise. It was non-impact, which was important for those of us getting into the 40+ range and at the time, and it required a social aspect as well. So we started a club, if you will, in Twinsburg, and then we informally started teaching some clinics on mostly how to stop.
Important.
How not to fall. Those kinds of things.
Even more important.
Exactly. And then we just had for a good period of time. We had a great time and got to some very amazing skating venues. Many of them were. And once you got the gear, you didn't have to pay anything. That was the other big thing too.
Sure.
So it had all the elements. It was cheap. It was good for you. It brought good people together. We had a good time and just enjoyed each other's company, and it evolved from there. So it was a lot of fun doing that.
Great. Bill, you've always struck me, and I think you've kind of reinforced that today as being a giver. And in education, in the project you're working on now, you help people, you educate them, you befriend them. And in this day and age, people often ask the question, well, what's in it for me? And you always seem to ask the question, well, what can I do for others? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, I think probably it stems from what was done for me over the years, not only by my family, my wife and my kids, but that giving and sharing, I think is something that goes both ways. And when you find that commonality, it just seems like it's simpler to just connect the dots, if you will. Some people call it a win-win, and it's not always possible. But I think it's really important to look at a situation, any situation, whether it's business or being involved in the community or helping out in a situation, or just providing a space for people to be in, that it's real important to look at the other side, look at where somebody's coming from. You're not going to always agree, and there are times when, okay, it's going to have to be this way if we want to be successful. But I think the first step is to try to see where there's a connection, where there's an opportunity for both sides to get something. And more often than not, what really is important is that when you find that sweet spot of what's in it for me is actually more about what can I do for you, or how can we make this work. That's sorely needed. And
it sure is.
And it's a point of I think strength. Quite honestly, it's a much stronger situation than if it's all about me and all about how I get this done and I'm doing that to you, and that eventually that will fall apart. So I think it's a much stronger, tighter bond, if you will, when you can find that kind of a situation. So.
Okay. You and I have talked about some simple strategies for success. And one of them is, and I love this, you said this the other day, learn something new every day.
Yeah.
Okay, can you talk about that?
Well, I think it keeps us from getting old.
Okay, that's a good reason. Sure.
Well, because you're engaging the mind, you're engaging the body, and it just keeps it's impossible to become bored when you're stay inquisitive and just ask, geez, I wonder what that's about, or I wonder how I can make that happen, or I wonder if I can work that into what we're doing and the mission or the goal that particular day, and what do I need to know in order to make that happen. So it just keeps the flow going, keeps the juices flowing, I think. And that's just a personal feeling that keeps life interesting. Mm-hmm. When you can learn something every day, even if it's learning your own limitations.
And it kind of goes back to what you said about you're not going to retire and do nothing. Mm-hmm. So if you're learning something every day, you're not doing nothing, you're doing something, which is,
I feel like now I'm in kindergarten or first grade. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a good feeling from a learning standpoint.
Absolutely, yeah. Another thing that you talked about, Bill, was surrounding yourself with good, positive people. Why is that important?
It is so easy for negative thinking to creep into any situation, whether it's politics or whether it's personal decisions or whether it's trying to do something and then talk yourself down or have someone else talk you out of it, or that's a terrible idea. Life's so short. I personally, and I know you share this philosophy, don't have a lot of time for negative energy. Mm-hmm. And when that's around you, it's kind of, you kind of wear it like rags. It's kind of like toxic, if you will. So I'll empathize with someone. I'll try to see what's causing that, but at some point I just can't buy into the negative energy.
Kind of disengage.
Exactly. Positive energy and positive people are it's like recharging your battery, and it's so helpful to surround yourself with good people who you might not always agree with them, but if they're positive about life, it makes a huge difference in I think it makes a huge difference in how we age. Mm-hmm. and how we feel about life and people around us. So I think that's big. That's huge.
Okay. Number 3, which I think is huge, enjoy the journey.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're here doing what we do. Each day is not promised to anyone. It's not guaranteed. I tell my grandkids every day to look up, make sure that you see the sunshine. Don't always look down, look up. You got to look up and just appreciate that day that you've been given, and what are you going to do with it. And although I've some parts of the journey I haven't enjoyed, tearing down insulation was a day I would say was less enjoyable than other days, uh-huh. But every day is a gift, and enjoy that journey. Be in the moment. Don't let those moments go by without acknowledging that we've been given that gift of that day. So it's, I think it's, it works. It just works.
Any suggestions for maybe some folks in our audience who do not enjoy every day, and how do they start to do a flip to enjoying every day?
Wow, there's so many good words that have been written. Mm-hmm. People that we're in a technological age where we can bring up everything from a discussion to a philosophy. I was so lucky and fortunate to be able to sculpt some of that with my students and look at, okay, what would make my students think about being positive for this day. And there's so many good things out there that are inspiring. One that comes to mind is the last lecture by mm-hmm. Randy Pouch from Carnegie Mellon University, and it was a staple of my class to show students that you have to look up and be positive and take a situation and say, okay, the bottom line is if we have our health, then everything else is doable. We can redo something. We can try something else. We can go in another direction. If you're healthy and look for the positive in a situation, chances are it's probably there, and it's worked. So
Just a matter of digging a little. And
digging a little sometimes, yeah, and finding inspiration in a sunrise, inspiration in your family and friends, and an opportunity well, we've got an opportunity to laugh or cry. So, which one
And
do
it's
we
a
want to do?
choice.
It is it's a choice. You're absolutely right. That sums it up.
So life, as we hear, is full of choices. So enjoy the moment.
Yep.
Make a choice to enjoy the moment, and be positive. Surround yourself with positive people. Learn something new every day. These are all ways of slowing down the aging process, shall we say,
We hope so.
and to allow ourselves to live a long and happy life, and
be
hopefully-
grateful.
And be grateful.
Be grateful.
That is so important.
It is, Doug. You got it.
Yeah.
You have.
Just take a moment to every morning or every evening before going to bed, and say, what am I grateful for today? What happened today that was good?
Yeah.
Someone I know in the business world always said, what's good that happened today? So,
Yeah.
Bill, we're going to leave it on that note.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for being
Thank you,
here.
Doug.
It has been a
It's
pleasure.
a pleasure to connect with you again.
Super.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
I have been told that when you text, there are different perceptions of what your text says. Now, there's been a recent study at Bingham University that confirmed in an experiment that if there is no punctuation at the end of a text, that you are considered to be more sincere than if you end the text with a period. Conversely, used to be if you ended everything with an exclamation point, that was considered to be rude. Now it's considered to be even more sincere than using no punctuation at all. Who comes up with this stuff anyway?